Hello viewers, thank you for joining me. This is one of those series I started on a last-minute whim. All I knew was that I wanted to do something romance-related for February. I do like to feel like I actually use my High Dive subscription for something, and just because was there, so I went for it. In hindsight, I would have chosen something else, but we'll get to that. Just Because tells the story of 5 students during the last semester of the school year, 4 of whom are getting ready to graduate. There's Mio, the now ex-student council president, whose life has become consumed by studying for her upcoming entrance exams. Haruto, the school's baseball star, who's already written off the idea of college and is planning to join the workforce straight out of high school. Hazuki is shy and quiet, but leads the school band. Ena, the only underclassman of the group, heads the photography club, which is in danger of being shut down. She pressures the club advisor into reconsidering if she can win an award before the end of the year, make the club look good. But actually they aren't a group yet, at the start of the series. They're brought together when Eita transfers in, moving back to town actually. His dad's job causes the family to relocate a lot, but he already knows Haruto and Mio from middle school. Now, I'm sure you can tell from the introduction that I didn't love this show, but the first episode continues to stand out in my mind, almost like its own separate experience. It's not that it starts out super impressively or anything. It keeps jumping from one character to the next, showing us their lives in brief snippets. This is something that would stop bothering me as the series went on, but at this point, when I wasn't even certain on most of their names, it made it really hard to get into. But then things took a turn at the end. Eita's wandering around the grounds, getting acquainted with his new school. He finds Haruto out on the baseball field, trying to relive the best part of his school days. They actually used to be teammates on their middle school team, and Haruto, excited to see his old friend, ropes him into one last game. Mio, standing by the big windows overlooking the fields, sulking really that her friends get to go have fun at karaoke while she has to study for her exams, stops to watch their game. Hazuki, getting ready to turn in her trumpet, sees them from the band room and gets some of the younger members together to play the song they always play at the school games, raising the energy of the whole scene. And Ena, running from the club room, trying to figure out what she's going to submit for the upcoming competition, also comes across their game and starts snapping pictures. To be honest, one episode in, and I was already starting to regret this decision, albeit too stubborn to drop it either way. It was just pretty slow and dull, but seeing them all come together like this was a really great moment. It made me hopeful for the rest. Once Haruto hits his home run, he lets Eita in on the bet he made with himself. He told himself that if he hit the home run, he would finally confess his love to Hazuki. After Haruto rushes off, Eita runs into Mio, who he's had a crush on since middle school. They didn't part on great terms, though. When they were younger, Eita discovered her crush on Haruto. We've got a nice, complicated, not-quite triangle going on here. So they spent most of their junior high years orbiting around each other. Eita, of course, wanted to spend time with her, but isn't exactly outgoing and would never admit this outright, and Mio felt like she had to keep checking in with him to make sure he was keeping her secret, so their pattern of bickering is already well established, and they fall right back into it when they're reunited now. They accidentally run into the other two while Haruto's struggling to get the words out. He ends up awkwardly inviting them all on a trip to the aquarium on their next day off. It's not really what he'd intended, but episode 2 is sweet. It's this outing that really established them as a group, and I love a good, mushy friendship story, so I was still hopeful at this point. Shortly after this, Ena finally runs into Eita, wanting permission to use the photo she took of him pitching for the competition. And then makes sure she starts running into him everywhere when he initially tells her no, ultimately developing her own crush and staking her own claim in this mess. I've never been a huge fan of slice-of-life romances or love webs like these, but it's not an awful setup on its own. I think all the characters have something about them that makes them interesting, but the series does its absolute best not to endear you to them, is how it felt to me. Nearly everything I learned about these characters, it felt like I had to search through tiny details and figure it out for myself. Let's take Hazuki as an example, who I was actually pretty fond of by the end. She's the quiet, introverted one, but you can see from episode 1 that her younger bandmates are quite fond of her. As we get into her home life, we see that she has 3 younger siblings, and, more notably, never see her parents, which explains why she has a generally mothering personality, though there aren't many examples of it with her new friends, likely because she's always been so busy taking care of the house and her younger siblings, she's never spent much time with other people her own age. I wouldn't say that this particular example is something that's hard to pick up on, the influences that crafted her personality, I mean, but I would have really liked a moment of reflection from Hazuki, or a proper conversation with one of her new friends. Just something over the course of these 12 episodes where she addresses the situation at home outright and the impact it's had on her life. I'm not saying she ever seemed like she was secretly resentful of having all this responsibility dumped on her, but she is going pretty far away for college, with the intention of finally having a chance to figure herself out and what she really wants for her life. That she feels like she can't do that at home feels worth mentioning. A lot of the character storytelling feels overly subtle. I wasn't a fan. And I think some of it may have to do with where they chose to start their story. At the point we're introduced to these characters, they've mostly got their futures figured out already, or at least they've got a path set for the future. Eita and Hazuki have already been accepted into their schools. Haruto has a job set up for when he graduates, even if he is kind of dreading it. He's also joined an adult baseball league with his future co-workers, who are a very fun, positive group, who help him to see that there's more to life than his school days. It's an uplifting little subplot. Mio is the only one whose future is still in question, and for the most part, all we get to see of it is her studying and stressing over the tests. She does have a moment with her older sister, though, around episode 9 or 10. She was always really close to her sister, who starts pressing her for a proper reason behind why Mio wants to go to the same college she's currently attending. Basically pushing her, gently, to realize how smart she is. Mio does end up being the class's valedictorian, and reminding her that she could major in education just about anywhere. Mio just needs a little push to up her confidence, and she changes her first choice to a much tougher university. And while it was nice to see a little growth, even this was really vague. Overall, we hardly see Mio interact with her sister to get a feel for that relationship. We just get a line from Eita explaining that they've always been really close. I just really needed something more from this show. Another layer, like the characters needing to figure out what they wanted to do with their lives, might have done it. There's an awful lot of pining after love interests, but not nearly enough insight into these characters to make me really invested in those romances. Does it feel like this review is going around in circles? Anytime I make a point about where I felt this series struggled, I almost feel the need to backtrack, because while I certainly didn't love Just Because, I also didn't hate it. I can't say I never got into the love stories. Hazuki's confidence also grows, albeit in a very quiet way, over the course of the series, and there's no denying that Haruto's confession early on was the catalyst for that growth. They have some really cute moments throughout. I actually really liked Ena. She was easily my favorite character. The youngest member of the group is pushy and stubborn and very straightforward, which was super refreshing when everyone else was so locked away in their own heads. She was never afraid to say the thing that everyone else was holding back to be polite. Her scenes were like a breath of fresh air, and Eita really came to life whenever he interacted with her. Theirs is the only ship I'd say I felt truly passionate about, so it was pretty disappointing, and a bit irritating, that the series really wanted to push Eita and Mio as the main couple in this story. But I won't get too deep into that rant. I can't say I cared quite enough to really want to make a section of this review with spoilers. Unfortunately, my overall view of Just Because was that it was a really dull experience. I actually really loved the music, but even that comes with an unfortunately attached because it made me notice how often they chose not to use it. There are a lot of conversations or text exchanges where they chose to leave the background completely silent, which was a shame. The soundtrack was really mellow overall. It's not like it would have felt out of place. There are very few cases where the silence brought anything to the scene. I do feel like this show is very much a matter of taste, though. I can appreciate a good, meaningful, quiet scene, but I can only do so much mellow before I start to lose interest. Some people really enjoy it, though. I watched Azumanga Daioh not that long ago, and it was another slice of life, but it had just enough humor and general insanity to keep me invested. Even though I found it a bit slow and repetitive at times, I never had to drag myself through it. This show was one where I had to occasionally force myself to watch the next episode. So I know I'm not the best spokesperson for slice-of-life romances, but I'd say this one is safe to skip. And I can tell you that next month's series is going to be something very different. Thank you for watching.